Welcome to another day in the Matrix. This is Red Pill Podcast 135. I hope you're all having an amazing weekend so far. Last night we had the lunar eclipse, and since it's still a weekend, while the crypto market is trading alone, we have so much to talk about in the setup into this upcoming trading week, where we'll have tomorrow the entire market open for a couple days leading into the next FOMC meeting, where Fed Chair Powell will be talking, and it will bring a lot of volatility to these markets. So we have a lot to talk about in preparation for that, as well as I have dedicated today's podcast to the 2023 Major League Baseball World Series Decode. Many people have been asking me about it, and even if you do not watch sports or don't care too much about sports, I promise you today's Decode will be mind-blowing, and utilizing some of the tips and strategies that I'm going to be sharing along the way will make your Decode stronger, whether you're interested in world events or decoding the stock market or crypto. Whatever it is, I'm using the same system across the board for everything that I do, and that's why throughout this year we've been very successful in decoding these big sporting events and overall just anticipation for big events to happen in the world, such as this war narrative that has continued on and the black swan that we got in Israel just a couple weeks ago. So we're going to be talking about so much today, but I will be sharing my decode on the 2023 World Series with the Texas Rangers and the Arizona Diamondbacks. Really excited to get into that. But before we do, go ahead, get relaxed, get comfortable, grab yourself a cup of coffee or tea if it's the morning time, or a glass of wine or beer, any beverage of your choice if it's the nighttime. Again, welcome to Red Pill Podcast 135. Hope you're all doing amazing. And if you haven't gotten access to the Discord server yet, go ahead and send me a direct message on Patreon with your Discord username and the last 4 digits after your username, and I will reply back with a Patreon message to get you onboarded into our Discord. And we're doing amazing with the coin voting system for the altcoins this week. We will be covering Chainlink, Cardano, ICP, and Filecoin. And I'll also be sharing a quick wrap up on Hex, eHex, and pHex. So we'll be looking at Hex on the Pulse chain as well, because many have been following along my calls with this particular project. And because we're moving into this specific year of the dragon, and we have a lot of hexagon symbolism and a lot of Saturnian symbolism, I feel like this is interesting, whether you're interested in investing in this project or not, just from the symbolism and from a decoding perspective. And this could strengthen our investment thesis in other ways. So that's why it's perfect today that we're going to be talking about Hex and Chainlink, both having that hexagon symbolism. And there's a little bit more to talk about regarding decoding this episode, more than other episodes. So I really think it's going to be holistic and everyone's going to enjoy this. So we're going to be getting into a lot. Make sure to take notes today. This is going to be one of those podcasts that you're probably going to have to watch a couple times. And don't worry, I will be getting to this Wyckoff method schematic later in today's episode when we talk about Bitcoin. But for now, let's start off with today's decode. As I shared a little bit earlier, we had the lunar eclipse last night. That energy is still going on to this day today. And it will continue for the next couple days, of course, as we pivot into the next quarter moon. But I wanted to start putting emphasis on Satoshi Nakamoto's next birthday. The reason why is because it's right around the same time frame as our next solar eclipse, which is going to be on April 8th of 2024. That'll be the completion of what is called the Great American Eclipse, which will form an X over the state of Texas. If you're new to some of these things that I'm talking about, go over to my Patreon videos, my exclusive content, and watch the Great American Eclipse Decoded. It was the last full decode presentation that I've made. You are going to love it because it's packed with so much information talking about what to anticipate into next year. And I will also be doing a part 2 to that decode, most likely in January or February, coming up in this year. But for now, I just wanted to point out that you're going to hear me from now on talk a lot about Satoshi Nakamoto's next birthday, just because of how close it is to that eclipse. Considering Satoshi's next birthday is April 5th of 2024, this mythological character will be turning 49 years old. And why that 49 is so important is because it's 7 cycles of 7 years. This will be Satoshi's Super Shemitah. So you guys have probably heard me talk a lot about the Shemitah cycle. That's a 7-year cycle practiced in Judaism, where you do not harvest during that year. It's tied back to Saturn being the god of harvest, and Saturn is Satoshi, all right? Don't confuse Bitcoin by being a Saturn coin, by the way. That could get confusing for some people, but just focus on Saturn is Satoshi, and Satoshi thinks Bitcoin into existence, thinks blockchain into existence. It's an idea, right? And when we think of these sorts of things, remember, that's where mythology strengthens everything we do here. Thoughts or thinking, that's Thoth. Thoth is Hermes or Mercury. Now, that's not me flat out saying that Bitcoin is Mercury, but it is very mercurial. Why? Because blockchain or digital currency is money that is created out of thin air, and Mercury is the prince of the power of the air. It is the fiat system is mercurial. Anytime you see an eagle, the eagle is Mercury, Hermes, and we could see the Federal Reserve's logo is the eagle. That is Mercury, the prince of the power of the air. Money printed out of thin air. Crypto is thought fairy dust money. That's not me talking bad about it. We are here to pay attention to the future and get involved in it before it becomes household. This is how we can take advantage of it all and how we can make sure that we secure our wealth generationally. Anyways, moving on. I wanted to put emphasis on this to kick off today's podcast, to just hammer in how important next year is for cryptocurrency, being Satoshi's 49th year. The Super Shemitah, which moves us into biblical Jubilee, or what will become Satoshi's Jubilee year, and that'll be in 2025. I believe that's the year of the snake. So we'll get to that at another time. But it's very important to consider this, since Satoshi is a mythology and it's all tied back to Saturn, and this number 49 is very important in Judaism, and it influences how these markets and assets behave during specific years. I created my channel right there before this kind of essence of the Shemitah started, and if you've been following along since then, you've seen how powerful it was to be aware of that key piece of information that 99% of investors had no clue about. You had an edge on this market because of that. So I decided to connect Satoshi's next birthday, his next upcoming birthday, to tomorrow, and tomorrow being the 30th, Monday, Moon Day. And you can see that they're separated by 22 weeks and 4 days. Why that's important is because we're moving into the 2024 year. You remove the 0, you have 224, 224. And this is also 5 months and 6 days, like BTC, the ticker symbol, gives you 56 right there. And we know this matters a lot because BTC, the ticker symbol, is 25, and we're in the year of the rabbit, 25. We have cryptocurrency giving us the 52. We have crypto giving us 25. All coded in, important when you see these connections. Crypto is 65, that's the mirror of 56, and the same cipher as Bitcoin equals 56. Take notes, okay? So I just wanted to point that one connection out because it will also be the 303rd day of the year. I'll be talking about this a little bit later, but I've already brought up the significance behind this key date and a couple more things that we could break down, because it will be moving into the 44th week of this year on the 303rd day, and this will be transitioning into Samhain or Halloween. Okay, so we talked about 224 moving into the 224 year on Satoshi's 49th birthday, key birthday, because it's 7 cycles of 7, all tied back to this code, as I mentioned earlier. Now, what's so amazing about Satoshi's next birthday is because it's a leap year, it will be landing on the 96th day of the year. That is the 9669 code that's been very powerful lately. Remember, Bitcoin's all-time high is $69,000, and Satoshi is Saturn. Saturn equals 69 by the code. Satoshi is Saturn. Getting back to this connection, that means that the date of Samhain, of Halloween, this Tuesday, which I think matters a lot because Tuesday is Martes, Mars Day, God of War. We're currently at war. You could hear this war narrative. Everywhere you go, it's the talk of the town now. That's giving 22 weeks and 3 days until Satoshi's next birthday. And this is definitely important because this year we're in the 223 year. 223 is the mirror of 322, which is the skull and bones number. And we're going to need to remember this right now at the start of today's podcast because I'm going to be talking a lot about this when we get into our decode. Okay? Well, just remember this 223 year and the fact that it's all tied back to skull and bones. It's going to make today's decode a lot smoother, a lot easier to remember some of these key points that we'll be pointing out as we go. And just remember, skull and bones is Saturn. This is death or the Grim Reaper. This is the symbol of Saturn. Alrighty, so considering it's this Diamondbacks and Texas Rangers World Series going on as we speak, and I've had so many people reaching out to me about this, I decided to do a decode. If you watched my live stream that I did yesterday, I talked about a lot of this stuff live. I wasn't even anticipating doing it, but we had the moment. I started diving into a decode live, which I don't normally do, but it was really interesting, the code that I was finding, and I believe if it wasn't for that, for all of that intrigue, I probably wouldn't have even carved out the time to do this decode I'm sharing with you right now, but I feel it will be so lucrative for everyone, regardless if you watch sports or don't. Like, I don't personally watch sports. So what this benefits me with is what every other sporting event has benefited me with, which is letting me know about world events that'll be upcoming. And it'll also tell me the trajectory to anticipate for assets and for the markets, because this entire market is ran by these codes. The exoteric, which is Hollywood and entertainment and sports, everything from your World Cup to your World Series to the NBA Finals, Super Bowl, the Olympics, it doesn't matter. It's all coded in to how the market behaves and how world events happen. Consider that the upcoming Olympics will be in Paris, all right? The Paris Olympics. And we saw the symbolism there of the 2024 Paris Olympics. Let me just show you this really quickly to give you guys some backdrop before we move into this decode here. So you can see the old logo is something I would like to be able to quickly find for you all. One moment, because we know this new logo is straight up a flame. You cannot deny that. It's a flame. It's also a woman's face. You could see the lips. You could see this feminine kind of attribute to it. Female flame. You get where I'm going. Paris 2024. Let me show you the older logo. I hope I could find it. It's not so easy sometimes when you're using Brave browser. Oh, there it is. So there we have the 2024 Paris Olympics logo. They changed their logo, but this is the symbol of Jupiter. I'm going to show you that really quickly. These are all important things as we move into this year of 2024. Is that NASA? Oh my God. So yeah, you could see the 24 Jupiter Zodiac logo there next to Saturn's symbol. You could also see it right here, this 24. So there you go. That's them showing you this is the year of Jupiter. This is the Jupiterian vibe. Now, that would be like your masculine version of law, liberty, justice. Well, the feminine side of that would be Libra. And there you go. Ra, the sun, year of the dragon, flame, fire. You see? That's why I feel that 2024 is going to be packed with fire symbolism for sure. And we design our investment thesis around that. That would be orange, yellow, and red. Well, Bitcoin is orange. You can't deny that. It is the sun of the market, essentially. Okay, let's keep going. We know we have that April 8th eclipse, solar eclipse in the year of the dragon. That's right around Satoshi's next birthday. Big stuff. It's going to be very bullish, I believe, for Bitcoin, especially moving after that time frame. And we've seen in prior iterations of the third solar eclipse of the solar cycle that Bitcoin is incredibly bullish, even considering this 2020 cycle that happened where we had the C19 crash. That had happened between the second and third solar eclipse. So I'll be getting into that a little bit later today. But I just wanted to build some foundation, and let's head into our 2023 World Series decode. Okay, so you guys ready? All right. So out of these two teams, only one of them has won a World Series in the past, and it was the Arizona Diamondbacks, and they won in the 2001 World Series. And this is so important. Keynote. They won right after the 9/11 ritual. This was in October of 2001. 9/11 happened in September 11, 2001. This happened right then. And George Bush, which is a bonesman, he was in Yale's quote-unquote secret society, even though they're not secret at all, but he was in Skull and Bones. He's a popular bonesman, and he was the president at the time of 9/11. I know you all know this. And during this 2001 World Series, he threw the first pitch during that World Series at Game 3 when the Yankees played their first game at home during that series. Remember, 9/11 happened in New York City, and the New York Yankees made it to that World Series that year. I also want you to know that they won the two World Series before that in 99 and 2000. Then they lost the third in a row. That's 1, 2, 3. It's making me feel like this 223 code was already embedded into all of this, but that's just a side note. So you got to think this was a big disappointment to have the Yankees in New York lose right after 9/11, but that's how it went. And I just want to emphasize the fact that George Bush threw the first pitch while he was the president at the time. He threw the first pitch at the Yankees home game, the first home game of that series. And, 9/11, it was the 9/11 ritual. I want to show you really quickly how this is all coded in. We have 9/11/2001. And this was the 111 days left in the year, happening on the 11th day of the month of September. And we have that happening in New York, which is 111 by the code. Again, 111 happening on that exact date. And the Yankees play in the series against the Arizona Diamondbacks, which is the team that's in this World Series now. And this was the only World Series that this team won. And out of the two teams that are playing in the World Series as we speak, there's only one winner so far between these two teams. So I use this information to go back in time and consider that. But we had the time they won the World Series in 2001, right after the 9/11 ritual. And here we are 22 years later, and this is the 119th World Series. The mirror of 9/11. Mind-blowing. And just a side note, the Texas Rangers were partially owned by George Bush, the president at the time of 9/11, and he threw the ceremonial first pitch in this 2023 World Series that's going on right now. So he threw the first pitch at Yankees' first home game during this series back in 9/11 year. And then here he is now, 22 years later, in this game, throwing the ceremonial opening pitch. This is a simulation. In this year, 2023, that's the number 223, the mirror of 322, the skull and bones number, and of course, the most popular bonesman of them all throws the first pitch during this 2023 World Series, the 223 year. And the team he was part owner of makes it to this World Series, And the other team that won the World Series during 9/11 makes it to this World Series. So this year just so happens to be perfectly coded into all of it, with it being the 119 World Series, the mirror of 9/11. You can't make this up. Also, note how in the last Super Bowl that we had back in February of this year, it was hosted in Glendale, Arizona, which is essentially Phoenix, Arizona. And this year in the MLB, the Arizona Diamondbacks make it to the World Series, and they're from Phoenix. Again, showing you how scripted this is. We also just had the start of this great American eclipse only a couple weeks ago during the solar eclipse on October 14th, and this eclipse is tied to this upcoming solar eclipse on April 8th of 2024, just 3 days after Satoshi Nakamoto's 49th birthday, and we were talking about that earlier, and these two eclipses cross like skull and crossbones. These two eclipses cross over the state of Texas. And the Texas Rangers are in this year's World Series. What a coincidence. Well, we all know this is scripted. Also, the Arizona Diamondbacks are tied to the snake. That's really important, the diamondback rattlesnake. And in 2001, the year that they won the World Series, you're going to see 2001 Chinese Zodiac. It was the year of the snake, was the year that they won the World Series. Their team is the Snakes. You could see that in their code right here. So this is so much to take in already, but I believe you guys see where this is going. Remember, we're in the year of the rabbit. Rabbit starts with Ra. I think this is key to mention. Rabbit starts with Ra. The Rangers start with Ra. The Texas Rangers, we're going to start getting into some of this code now, some of the gematria. Texas Rangers gives you 52, like we're in the year of the rabbit, gives you 52. Texas Rangers also gives you 151. That's your 36th prime number. And it's the 63rd season of the Texas Rangers as we speak. Let me quickly show you all of this. I'll go over to Texas Rangers. And I'm going to quickly get to some of the code for you guys. Also, I hope you're having an amazing, amazing day so far. So much of this has really excited me. I love when I get deep into this code. So 2023 Texas Rangers season, you could see it's their 63rd year of being a franchise, and it's their 52nd in Arlington as the Rangers. There's your 52. Texas Rangers 52, and the year of the rabbit 52. And of course they make it to the World Series on this exact year. Rabbit has Ra, Rangers have Ra. Ra is the sun portal, and we just had a solar eclipse and start of a solar cycle, and we're currently having a lunar eclipse during the game they just had last night, and I want you to keep that in mind because yesterday's date told us the code to expect. Let me show you. We had the 28th was the day. We have an 81 date numerology and an 18 date numerology. That's 18 and 81. Mirror of each other, and Arizona Diamondbacks equals 180. You remove the 0, you have 18. You mirror the 18, you have 81, and it has 61 in Chaldean, which is your 18th prime number. Yesterday's date, 81, 18, and the Arizona Diamondbacks won to tie the series 1-1. Just like the two towers. Think about this code. Now, the next game will be tomorrow, Monday, October 30th, and you have the 1-1 date numerology, the Twin Towers, and the series is currently tied 1-1 on the 303 date, 33, the number of transmutation. We're tying this all back to 9/11, the 11 date, with the 1-1-1 day leaving in the end, and then you have New York giving you the 1-1-1. You can see how this is all coded. So this will be, of course, the tiebreaker. And then this will shift public opinion. It'll probably shift a lot of what's going on with the betting. So just keep that in mind. Whatever happens in the game tomorrow, it will shift that energy. But I wanted to share a couple things about this. So we have tomorrow leaving 62 days left in the year. That's the mirror of 26. And it's currently the Arizona Diamondbacks' 26th season in the Major League Baseball Association. So oddly enough, it will be an 11-date numerology. That 11 tied to all of this. Just some side notes. I'm adding in as much as I can, and then I'll share my final thoughts when I wrap this up. Now, the following day, Halloween, 31st, again, being 22 weeks and 3 days until Satoshi Nakamoto's next birthday. And we're talking a lot about these 223s because all of this is tied back to Skull and Bones. Well, one date connection I found very interesting that ties this all together is if it makes it to November 3rd, which would be game 6 in the series, technically. So we have November 3rd of 2023. And we're going to tie this to the upcoming solar eclipse that I've been talking about on the 8th of 2024. And you can see that between this date of Game 6 in this World Series and the upcoming solar eclipse, it will be 22 weeks and 3 days. The 223 code and the 223 year all tied to the 223 Skull and Bones. And we're in that Skull and Bones year, and also we know that anything tied to Skull and Bones is favorable since the Denver Nuggets won the NBA championship, and their logo, let me show you really quickly, is the Skull and Bones. You have the capstone of the pyramids, as above, so below, and you have the X, the crossbones, the pickaxes. These axes are your X's, your axis powers. You've heard of this. It's all etymology. You have to talk out a lot of these ideas, and then you'll actually reveal yourself the truth just by speaking it out loud. Break it down in its syllables and the etymology, and all of it will start to make sense. But you could see the symbology right in front of your face. This is the crossbones, like skull and bones. Denver Nuggets won this year. Everything with skull and bones symbolism was favored, and the color scheme is there too. You had the yellow and the red, just like the Chiefs who won the Super Bowl wore yellow and red. Okay, so look at this logo really quickly. We have skull and crossbones, as well as the Chiefs won the last Super Bowl, and I showed you in that Super Bowl 57 Decoded how the Chiefs were the Indians and the Native Americans. I call them Aborigine, but that's not what the world calls them. Just know, I'm speaking exoteric for the moment. The Chiefs are tied to that Native American essence, and how the formation of Skull and Bones, which goes back to 1832. Think about this. The formation of Skull and Bones was tied to the Indian Removal Act. This time we called the Trail of Tears and everything that was going on with that. And I shared that in my Super Bowl 57 Decoded, which is available here on Patreon. So go rewatch that. That had a ton of awesome information in it. Now, that so-called Indian Removal Act back in the 1830s, around the same time that Yale's Skull and Bones was established, that was enacted by the 21st Congress of the USA. So think about that 21 again, coming back to Saturn giving you 21. And that was a death ritual. Death is Saturn, the Grim Reaper. That was what that was all about. Basically destroying the Aborigine. So the quarterback of the Chiefs, Patrick Mahomes, he was called the Grim Reaper by his coach. Remember, I just told you, Saturn is the Grim Reaper. And of course, they won the Super Bowl the year before the Shemitah as well as the year after the Shemitah. The Shemitah being the year of Saturn. That is why it was ritualized that way. Also, Patrick Mahomes' birthday this year, he was the quarterback for the Chiefs who won the Super Bowl. This birthday that he had this year was the last day of Rosh Hashanah, the Hebrew New Year, all tied back to Saturn, the god of harvest. That's why the full moon in September is called the harvest moon. So the Skull and Bones connections are favorable for teams this year. That was the big point that I was trying to share. The pattern of the diamondback rattlesnake is literally looks like arrowheads. So go look up a picture of the diamondback rattlesnake, and I feel like there's some symbolism here that we should pay attention to. Their pattern that they have looks like arrowheads, like the Chiefs logo is the arrowhead. The snake is the serpent, which is the dragon, and we're moving into the year of the dragon. Snakes eat rabbits. We're in the year of the rabbit. Rabbit starts with Ra. Rangers starts with Ra. And November 3rd, the potential game 6 date, 22 weeks and 3 days away from the upcoming solar eclipse that forms an X over the state of Texas, Texas being tied into all these major sporting events. Since referencing the last Super Bowl we had, both of the quarterbacks were from Texas. And here's something to blow your minds. November 3rd is the 307th day of the year. That's the 63rd prime number. And we were just talking about how the Texas Rangers are in their 63rd year as a franchise. Now, in this, you would remove the 0. You get down to 37. 37, well, let me show you a couple things. We see that 37 in the last World Series. I'm going to show you. This is really weird how I found this, but the Arizona Diamondbacks in the World Series that they won back during that year of the Shemitah in 2001, where the 9/11 ritual happened, they scored 37 total runs. So it was making me think, because that 37 is huge, because it ties back to Saturn. 37 is 3 sevens, that's 777, your jackpot number. Now, if we go back to the last Super Bowl, you'll see how the score went for the winning team. They scored 7 points in each quarter they played, 777, that's your jackpot. Then in the last quarter, they scored 17, which is your 7th prime number. And then the total score between both teams added up to 73. 73 is the mirror of 37, 777. And what's even more mind-blowing is 73 is your 21st prime number. And that ties you right back to Saturn, 21. Again, no matter how you cut this up, it's all tied back to Saturn. And we were talking about the 307 becoming 37. Let me show you a couple things in this code. And it makes so much sense how both of these teams made it to this World Series. You have Diamondbacks gives you 37, and you have Rangers gives you 37. And the Rangers even have 21 in the same cipher as Saturn equals 21. Again, 37 being 3 sevens, 777 adds up to 21. The mirror of 37 is 73. That's your 21st prime number. Saturn equals 21. It's all tied back to Saturn, who is the Grim Reaper, who is Skull and Bones. You mirror 21, you have 12. The date is a 12-date numerology. Also, it's a 57 double-digit date numerology, and this is all tied back to what I was sharing about Super Bowl 57. The Super Bowl where the Chiefs won, where their quarterback, who gets all the prana, is literally nicknamed the Grim Reaper. And one last thing to top it all off. November should actually be the 9th month in the system, not the 11th, because novem in Latin means 9. So this date should actually be written 9-3, like 93, like Saturn equals 93 in basic gematria. You could see this as Saturn written all over it. So we should consider this even for Bitcoin, actually. Of course, being created by Satoshi Nakamoto, who is the mythology of Saturn in the blockchain realm. Let me get into a little bit more code tying this back to Saturn. We have Diamondbacks gives you 96 and 42, like Saturn gives you 69 and 42. We know this 96 is kind of a weird number this year. We had on the 69th day, Silicon Valley Bank failed. Will we be approaching our... Yeah, okay. I'll leave that on the side for now, but I just wanted to point out the Saturn connections coming back to the Diamondbacks. But we also see some of that essence going on in the Rangers, of course, with George Bush being the most famous bonesman of all time. having part ownership of the Texas Rangers, and he went ahead and threw the first pitch at this current 2023 World Series. So Texas is always ritualized. Remember, JFK was assassinated in Texas. His, I guess, great nephew, I'm not sure exactly the exact, relationship they have, but RFK Jr. is going to be running for president this next cycle. We're in a pre-election year. We're seeing buffoonery coming out of the current administration, and we're seeing all this war narrative make it even more, divided amongst the people, especially when it comes to all this money that's being printed for this thing. And it's reducing humanity down to numbers, which is really awful. And we've talked about this since the first podcast that I released after the event that happened in Israel. Like, you can't just be happy about predicting this stuff or think that it's, right or wrong. None of that. These are human beings. You always have to remind yourself that there's humanity behind this, not just numbers. I want to take a moment to remind us all of that. There's lives being lost here. There's lives being ritualized here. So it's nice to have this gnosis, but always make sure that you remind yourself of the humanity of it all. Getting back to this decode, wanted to bring up how this day of Friday, November 3rd, is on a Freya day, which is the day of Venus. And let me just show you some of the code. You probably remember a little bit earlier. Venus gives you the 8118, and we had Arizona Diamondbacks heavily tied into this 8118 code. 188161 is the 18th prime number. So just like they won yesterday on the, let me show you, the 28th of this year, 8118, they won. So it's making me think, there could be something tied into all of this. Excuse me, I lost my date calculator. Okay, we're back on track. Just wanted to point out the 8118 tied to the Diamondbacks code. They won on a Saturn day. Keep that in mind. And we were bringing up the 3rd of November. Could be onto something with this. Okay. One last thing I noticed with this code is that the team manager names are pretty fascinating. We're going to be going to this 2023 World Series, and you could see that the current manager of the Arizona Diamondbacks is named Torrey. Back in 2001, the manager of the Yankees, which was the losing team, was Joe Torre. Current guy's name is Salvatore. He goes by Torre, excuse me. So I found one connection there that I thought was pretty interesting. Of course, Joe Torre losing in the Shemitah year, where New York City was ritualized, manager of the New York Yankees. And with regards to this guy, Torey Lovullo, who's the current manager of the Diamondbacks, I'm going to be pulling him up for a second so we don't get all mixed up. This individual. Regarding this individual, he was appointed on November 4th of 2016. I think this is really important to consider. November 4th of 2016. Well, that's the following day. And if we were to tie this all together, one second. We're going to go to November 4th of 2016. And you're going to see how these are exactly 7 years apart. Now, November 4th this year would technically be a Game 7 date if they were to go to 7 games. So this guy, Torey Lovullo, is the current manager of the Diamondbacks, and on November 4th, it'll be his 7th year anniversary as their manager. And this will happen to fall on the Game 7 date on a Saturn day, the day of Saturn, the god of harvest. We remember the Shemitah is the 7-year cycle that pays homage to Saturn, the god of harvest. So this 7 year as a manager in Game 7 thing is important. And the last time this team won the World Series back in 2001, remember 2001 would be written out like this. You remove the zeros, you get back to 21, like Saturn equals 21. Another connection I'm not sure I shared earlier. And They won right after that Shemitah was over regarding the Arizona Diamondbacks. They won right after that Shemitah was over. This time around, the Jubilee just ended last month, as you're aware, so it could have that similar essence. Going over to the Texas Rangers, their manager, Bruce Bochy, he is from France. This is making me think of a couple things. France's flag is red, white, and blue, just like the Texas Rangers uniform is red, white, and blue. Has that same aesthetic as the USA flag. And remember, the original capital of the US was Philadelphia. The Philadelphia Eagles lost this past Super Bowl. And remember how France lost the last World Cup. These are big connections, guys. The coach for the Diamondbacks started in the 2017 season, even though he got appointed in 2016, right there at the end of the season. He had his official first year as their manager in 2017, which was the year of the only Super Bowl win for the Eagles. So, of course, this is the year he makes it to this World Series, where the Eagles just lost. Note the Houston Astros won the World Series that year. That's a Texas team, and it also went to a Game 7. So in 2017, the Houston Astros won, and then the Eagles won that year for the NFL. This year, we have another Texas team playing in the World Series, and that could be kind of influencing some negative aspects for Arizona in that regard. So we're just trying to find as much information as we can, seeing what negatives and what positives we have, and then we'll make our final decision when that time comes. Now, since the Eagles lost this year, it's also making me feel that the Texas team from this year loses too. Just considering that tie. Even though I shared what I shared earlier, I'm just practicing kind of my intuition here. Funny enough, in 2017, the first year this manager, Torrey, was with the Diamondbacks, they made it all the way to the National League Division Series, and they lost to the Los Angeles Dodgers, who went on to lose to the Astros in that year's World Series. So now you take it to this year, in 2023, the Arizona Diamondbacks beat the Philadelphia Phillies to make it to this World Series. Just like the Eagles lost this Super Bowl, you see? The Phillies lost, the Eagles lost. You can see how scripted this is. Going back to the year of the rabbit in 1999, let me quickly, 1999, Chinese Zodiac, I want to show you guys all of this. So you can see right here, the year of the rabbit in 99, which was very close to the last time the Diamondbacks won the World Series against the Yankees. Well, the Yankees won the World Series during that year of the rabbit, and they beat the Atlanta Braves. That's very interesting since the Braves, their logo is an axe with the Native American theme, similar to the Chiefs who won this year's Super Bowl. And since the Braves logo is an axe, that's directly tied to the pickaxes in the Denver Nuggets logo, who also won the championship this year. And then in 99, the year of the rabbit, the team with this symbolism loses. That's why it's important to have a holistic decoding system and not just rely on symbology, not just rely on looking at logos. You need to utilize the gematria and numerology as well. So I wanted to point that out and definitely take note on that, because as you're decoding, you might find some connections and you might be too quick to make your decisions. You have to add some more to your system. And everything we've been talking about so far could protect those sorts of follies. Now, here's the big clue that will finalize my decision. During the year of the rabbit back in 2011, it was the World Series between the St. Louis Cardinals and the Texas Rangers. Think about this, family. I'm going to quickly pull this up. I'm going to close out of some of this stuff. So, 2011 was the last year of the rabbit. And the teams that were playing were the Texas Rangers and the St. Louis Cardinals. Texas Rangers are playing in this World Series this year, and it's also the year of the rabbit. They lost in a Game 7 to the St. Louis Cardinals. St. Louis is in Missouri, just like Kansas City is in Missouri. And the Kansas City Chiefs won this year, just like a Missouri team won back in 2011 during the year of the rabbit, both from the state of Missouri. Also, this is pretty important. World War II, it was going on from 1939 to 1945, and the St. Louis Cardinals won in 42, 44, and the year after the war ended in 46. They were one of the top teams during World War II. And we have this theme of war going on right now in Israel since the recent Black Swan event that happened on October 7th this year after the 50th year anniversary of the Yom Kippur War, which was the anniversary literally right after the end of this Jubilee, and the Jubilee is a 50-year cycle. World War II started during the year of the rabbit in September of 1939. And here we are now, starting war in the year of the rabbit, literally right around the same exact time frame too, to the month. By the way, 1939, the Yankees won the World Series, which again signals how history is written by the winners, because World War II had this essence of America being the winners, right? And at the start of the war, you have the Yankees being the winner. And in 2001, you have 9/11 ritual and the Yankees being the losers. And this went on to the war in the Middle East and everything else that followed. You have to see how these sports events are staged and how they're influencing everything else going on around it. So the Yankees won the 99 and the 2000 World Series all around the year of the rabbit, and then they went on to lose to the Diamondbacks in the 2001 year. You have the positive and then you have the negative aspects. Now, going back to the last year of the rabbit, matching the year we're in now in 2023, the Texas Rangers lose that World Series and the Missouri team wins. Like the Kansas City Chiefs, a Missouri team won the Super Bowl this year. So I'll wrap this up here. I'm going to go with the Arizona Diamondbacks winning this year's 2023 World Series, either by Game 6 or Game 7, but likely a Game 7 based on all the code that I shared coming back to the past iterations of the World Series games, and the 7 code with this year of 2023 being 2 + 2 + 3 = 7, and November 4th being the potential Game 7 date, and that would be the 7th anniversary of their current manager, Torrey, being in their roster. His birthday also lands on a 22 date numerology. Next year, he'll still be 58 years old during the time frame of the 58th Super Bowl. And if you see that Game 7 lands on a 58 date numerology. So also, it's the day after, the day leaving 58 days in our year. You see all these 58s. So Game 6 date would be on a 58 day left in the year. The following day would be 58 date numerology. We have next year being Super Bowl 58, while this manager will still be 58 years old. Seeing lots of 58s. You want to know why that's so powerful, family? XRP = 58 and 22. We know we just moved on through the 22-year anniversary of 9/11, which was the last year the Diamondbacks won. And then we have the XRP kind of vibe changing now with the SEC losing multiple times in the current case against Ripple, making us feel a little bit more like bullish in regards to our overall investment thesis. So this guy, Salvatore Torre, the guy who's the manager of the Arizona Diamondbacks, he has a 22 birthday numerology. It's been 22 years since the Diamondbacks won their last World Series. This would put the Diamondbacks winning 4-3 in a 7-game series to win their second championship in 22 years. So there you have it. We did full decode on the Super Bowl, the NBA Finals, and now this World Series. So let's see how this one goes, because between tomorrow and a potential Game 7 date on November 4th, it's only 5 days away. So this will all be over by the next Red Pill podcast that I release. Although if it makes it to a Game 7, then it'll be happening on the day of my next live stream. So that'll be really interesting to see how things go between then and now. Overall, I feel that the Diamondbacks will win. Okay, so now coming back to the markets, we all know that we have this upcoming FOMC meeting this Wednesday, miércoles, the day of Mercury, tied to commerce, merchandise, and fiat money, money printed out of thin air, which is what the Federal Reserve is. We have this meeting on the 1st of November, the 111 date, just like before we were talking about 9/11 and how New York equals 111. So this is some stuff to keep in mind. It's also tied to Satoshi's last birthday, which was in this year on the 5th of April. By 210 days, you remove the 0, you have 21. That's tied back to the Saturn code. Saturn equals 21. Also, there's 21 million Bitcoin in supply, and it's important to note how it will be a 55 standard or a 55 date numerology, just like Satoshi Nakamoto equals 55 in multiple ciphers. Also, this is huge that Satoshi Nakamoto equals 224. I forgot about this. We're moving into the 224 year. This is huge. And Satoshi will be 49. The super Shemitah of Satoshi, Saturn. Huge. So this could definitely be an important date as a whole, including the fact that Bitcoin still has no official ETF launched. And I already shared my thoughts about this considering the date of our next new moon on November 13th, tied to Satoshi's birthday. Let me just quickly show you this. Including the end date, we have 223 days since Satoshi's 48th birthday, and 223 equals 48 prime. And this is the day leaving 48 days left in the year. You seriously can't make this up. So that's huge. And we know that we're in the year of the rabbit. Let me just quickly summarize all of this. We know we're in the year of the rabbit with the 25 code. We have BlackRock giving you 25 in Chaldean. The CEO of BlackRock is Larry Fink, giving you 25 by the code. This all ties back to a Bitcoin ETF. BTC is 25. It's the top crypto, equals 25. This is all happening during the year of the rabbit, 25. And Larry Fink's birthday is November 2nd, I believe. November 2nd, and he was born in 1952, 5-2. Satoshi's birthday this year was on a 52 date numerology. Again, we were just showing you all the 25-52 connections. So if there's going to be a year for a BlackRock Bitcoin ETF, it's this one, before the end of this year. And Larry Fink's birthday lands on the day leaving 59 days left in the year. Let me just quickly go over to 11/2. You could see that 59 right there. This is the 17th prime number. The mirror of 17 is 71, and he turns 71 years old on this exact date. So, again, a ritual for him. And 17 days after his birthday, let me show you this. This will be on the 322nd day of the year, the 322, the skull and bones number. Remember, we're in the year 223. And this also lands on a Saturn's day. How crazy is that? So that's perfect. Please keep November 18th in mind as well for something to do with finance and banking, or perhaps specifically to BlackRock. Could very well be the date of a bank collapse, by the way, which will be like a similar isolated ritual to what happened earlier this year on March 10th with Silicon Valley Bank and Silvergate and Credit Suisse. It will also be 8 months and 8 days since March 10th, that ritual. So you have the 8-8 code to consider. Double analemma, movement of the sun and the moon. This gives us plenty to work with over the next week, and now is the perfect time to pivot over into the charts and to see what's going on in the traditional markets before we head into the crypto charts. I know I mentioned in my last red pill I would give the indices a couple weeks before checking back in. But with the major indices heading lower on this past weekly close, it's important we touch base really quickly on those to see what's going on and how it could potentially affect the crypto market. But so far, what I've been sharing since the first eclipse of this year in April, The idea that we could have a deeper correction for the stock market that doesn't necessarily affect the crypto market as much. And once we passed through this recent second eclipse of the solar cycle, just a couple weeks ago, we could see this Bitcoin chart being even stronger against the bigger swings in the traditional markets. So in simplified terms, the stock market has way more to give back than the crypto market. The crypto market has already lost 95% to 99% on a lot of altcoins. In the big caps, we've even seen 90+% losses. We could see that Bitcoin has been maintaining its structure while we see a continuation to the downside for stocks. So far, since July of this year until now in late October, the charts are proving exactly what I was sharing, that that's the case. The indices are going down while Bitcoin is structurally higher. This has everything to do with balance right now. Moving out of Libra, this is about balancing the scales. And as we get closer to Saturnalia, which will be in the end of Q4, I believe that balance will be fully complete. So we only have this kind of time frame now, the lull between the end of that Shemitah that we just moved through, Jubilee that we moved through, up until pretty much Saturnalia. And of course, this is all tied back to Saturn. So let's check in with the indices now. We're going to quickly look at the Dow Jones, see what's up. Remember, stock market's closed today. We're seeing a little bullish energy in Bitcoin, but I wouldn't get a party started just yet because we have stock market opening up tomorrow. Looking at the Dow Jones, look at that. Another lower low. So we have our yearly highs coming in August of 2023, and we've made another leg lower as of last Friday. And on Bitcoin, it's the complete opposite. We could see an uptrend, downtrend on stocks, effectively a downtrend now because we broke down this May 25th low with a daily close. So in English, we have our high, our lower high, and now a actual trend reversal considering that we broke this low here. We held it for a moment with this lower high, but then that confirms this is a reversal. Now, it would be really confirmed if we started breaking below this structure right here, but technically it's obvious that we have a resistance coming in at 34,200 points. If I was to hold my cursor there, you can see all the touch points going from the right to the left of the screen. It was a prior support, and since breaking down, it has become a resistance. We only lived above it for a short moment, but this is just a fake out and what could be becoming a head and shoulders. So you have your left shoulder, head, right shoulder here, and then the breakdown, I'm assuming, could bring you into below 30,000 points. So we've been talking about this, family. We've been talking about the end of an automatic rally and a deeper correction, which heads you down to the 382, as deep as the 236, and then we'll see from there. As of this Friday, we have broke below the 0.5 fib. So this automatic rally is completed. Bull trap scenario 1 did in fact play out. That was the most likely scenario. That was the scenario we were sharing during the Shemitah year. It's been over a year since then. And now we're definitely seeing some weakness in the Dow. And let's pan over to the S&P. There it is. We had this white trend line that we were talking about getting back tested. It has effectively been back tested, and now we're closing off the weekly slight above the 0.5 fib in the macro. That's what you get. That's how an automatic rally ends. So automatic rally in completion, it will definitely be confirmed if we were to start closing dailies below the 0.5 fib. Heading down to the 382 would not be weird. So we can actually see the 382 be tested potentially within the next 20 days or so. I'm not necessarily, I don't really care if that happens, by the way. It doesn't really matter at all because I don't even invest in the stock market. I just look at it as an analyst to see how it could affect the overall market. Even if we were to get that push down there, Bitcoin will be holding structure. So that doesn't mean we will be going below 30 or 25 again. We could actually have the stock market go down, or the S&P go down to 4,000 flat, let's just say, and then have the Dow go down to 30,000, let's just say, something like that, like 31,000, and Bitcoin can still hold 25K. So please write that down, and then you could kind of get the reasoning why. It has everything to do with the solar cycle, and I've been talking about this now for so long. Okay, so getting over to the NASDAQ chart, and then we're going to keep it moving. Now, NASDAQ had what looked like a lot of people would speculate a bull flag. And I talked about this in my last podcast over with Bearable Bull. Now we're seeing a retest, potentially the bottom of the golden pocket, the 618. If that 618 gets broken, we could head down quickly to this major red trend line that I had, and then ultimately the 0.5 fib, catch up with what the S&P and the Dow have done. And then anything below the 0.5 fib, it's a quick swipe to the 382. Now, I don't know if we can go that deep. We'll have to see, because they want to keep tech stocks on life support. I think there's going to be other issues that are down the pike. Banking is one of them, and maybe some things with logistics and oil because of what's happening with this war, and housing. Like, if I really had to tell you how I feel, I think the top is in the stock market. I've been feeling that way for a while now, and it's confirmed that the top is happening from a technical perspective. At least until maybe Q3 2024, perhaps. We'll see, because April of 2024 is typically a very bullish time frame during an election year, so we could at least be recovered by April. But between now and April is a long time. So for me, stock market's most likely topped out. We're going to be seeing, just kind of this more downwards lull, slow pullback, but I think the Fed and generally the New World Order wants to keep tech on life support. So what they're going to go after and hit the hardest is most likely insurance, housing, and banking. I'll leave it at that, okay? I got to move on, but I've shared a lot so far today. Let's get over to Bitcoin, and I want to talk about this Wyckoff schematic that I shared a couple of days ago. And then we'll move into what I talked about last week with the average 6% correction, etc. So here we have an accumulation schematic number 3 from my advanced trading course. Again, anyone who has that course, I appreciate your support. It means so much to me. Anyone that's gone through the crypto mastermind course is more than ready for that advanced trading course. So consider getting that if you're planning on being a little bit more active in your swings in the year of 2024. It's a very conservative course. It's not this moon boy, huge bets, frequent sniper trading, day trading nonsense where you're staring at your screen all day. It's nothing like that. It's to have a couple of swing trades every month and just to focus on profitability. Paper trading, learning how to do it the right way so that you actually have a skill that stays with you forever. But considering this schematic, I thought it was very obvious if you were to consider, based off of our all-time high, this move right here being the PS, a preliminary support, and then pushing down into this horizontal trading range that was active from, let's take the time frame of June, the summer of 2022. Until recently, we've actually started to break above the box. So here's our box. We have this median line right here. I want to point this out. We have the first test rejection at 25, the second rejection at 25K Bitcoin. That's about 190 days apart. And then we have, from this last rejection, we flipped the prior resistance and confirmed it's a new support. And look, if we take from the last rejection over to where we are now in the last backtest, it's the same amount of days, 190 to 200 days. That's beautiful. Rejection, what seemed like a double top fake out, 200 days apart. And then from the last rejection to the last test at those levels, confirming it as a support because we broke higher. This is not a double top. This is not a head and shoulders, none of that shit. People just need to see this for what it is. This is a trading range that's effectively in play now, going on 500 something days. And breaking above this level at around 32K, 33K was big because that's your 0.5 fib. So this is all kind of recovery essence right now. And I want to pivot over a couple of last thoughts on this. We have these two rejections up here, which is similar to these two rejections over here. So I want you to think 1, 2 is similar to 1, 2, and then a break out of the box would be what we're experiencing right now. Now, you see how we broke out of the box, but then we back tested it? That's okay. You see, if we were to really back test the top of this level right here, that would be somewhere between 31 and 32K. That's a perfect time to get over into what we talked about last week with a potential pullback based on prior iterations of second solar eclipses in the solar cycle. So I'm going to zoom in. Our current top is sitting at around 35,100-ish. And if I pull down to this current low, it's about 5%. So we've effectively gotten really, really close to the 6% pullback that we've seen in every other iteration, except we had the one that happened back here. Let me quickly zoom in and you'll see this from this rejection down to here. And this was all around your lunar eclipse. Remember, the lunar eclipse just happened pretty much last night. You can see a 9.4% correction. So we're going to try out the same and see what we're working with here. So from about 35.1, I think is what most exchanges we hit as our top. We're going to go down 9%, 9.4-ish, and you're going to see we'll be slightly below 32K. So keep 32K in mind. That's crucial because we have this moving average right here, the 13 exponential, perfectly around that level. Let's go back to 2020 and see where the 13 EMA was. Well, look at that back test. Boom, perfectly on that, right above it, but pretty much right there, right? So you have this lunar eclipse touch on the 13 EMA. We have right now our lunar eclipse, and then we have our 13 EMA sitting around 32.2. So anything around this 13 EMA is a good thing to keep in mind. Then we have one other thing to consider, which is the fact that Bitcoin has effectively broke the highest it's ever been in a second solar eclipse. Between that and the following lunar eclipse, this was the biggest gain that we've seen. Bitcoin went up 30%. All right, that's huge. So if we had a 6% pullback on a couple iterations and then a 9% pullback on one iteration, we could even entertain something a little bit bigger. And that would be maybe like an 11% correction off of 35,100. And you could see an 11 to 12% correction is somewhere around 31K. So that back tests the top of what was our rejection levels on this double, what seemed like a double top at the time. Okay. Now, 32K would be awesome. 31K would be also great. That would really smash altcoins, and that would provide one really nice final buying opportunity for the alts. I just want you to think about the timing here, because here in this iteration, it was short and sweet. Pretty much as we moved out of the lunar eclipse, we had this straight, jagged structure of just rejection, but holding generally until we popped up pretty hard. Look at what we're dealing with today. It's pretty much the same look. If I was to turn off all of this, you see the look of how this is horizontal and getting rejected at these levels. So just keep that in mind. It does look very similar to 2022. And then we have in this iteration over here, you have your second solar eclipse. We topped out a little bit earlier and then we stayed sideways for a while. I would love for this to be the case this time. So you see how we popped up a little bit prematurely. We came down. We held our EMAs, kind of flicked below them for a little bit. This was the following lunar eclipse. So that would be like last night. And then imagine about 5 days later, we had one final touch to the bottom, and then we just continued pretty much forever on an uptrend. So that would be amazing if that happened. 5 days from yesterday would be, wow, it would be the 2nd of November. So pretty much right after the FOMC meeting. Keep that in mind. So that gives you everything you need to know. The pullback target somewhere between 31 and 32K. It doesn't need to happen. There's nothing that needs to happen. I was buying my Bitcoin back here. I believe the last time I bought Bitcoin was the day before the solar eclipse. I made a post and I shared that I was buying it at 26K. Same thing I did with my XRP and ETH purchases recently. I was getting in. I wasn't waiting for pullbacks. You buy when you can. That's how this works. And we've already effectively got a 6 or a 5% correction out of the normal 6% that we get. Bitcoin doesn't need to do anything. But the fact that we're moving closer and closer and closer to this potential ETF launch, I want you to be considerate of that. We have that one iteration going 5 days out a little bit later, which would be, let me look at our quarter moons. Third quarter moon is on November 5th. So if we're going to get anything, it would most likely be before that versus after, because after is moving into the next new moon. That new moon is important. And if we were to look at all the other iterations, we're pretty bullish moving into that final or that next new moon. Okay, so I talked about the Wyckoff chart. I talked about the typical corrections that we're going to get and the times to consider it. Let me look at the weekly. Let me turn off this noise. I know it's a longer podcast than usual, family, but this is important stuff. So we have the monthly, and we could be potentially closing the monthly above the 0.5 fib in the macro. By the way, this is a fib that has been in play for almost 700 days. So closing above the 0.5 fib in the macro is a really nice sign. Let me look at the weekly. We're above everything. We'd be closing our weekly on a new weekly high. Can't say anything bad about that. We do have this weekly RSI clearing this past weekly here on April 10th. That's very good. Clearing any divergences. Let me turn off. I'm just trying to speed this up so I don't kill too much time. Okay, we have the 55 simple sloping to the upside. Everything's sloping to the upside. It's looking pretty good. And we have all of our key moving averages starting to cross above the 200 simple. And they're all in bullish posture. Once this 13 moving average starts crossing above 30K, that's a very good sign that we're going to just continue up. Unless we have a 2020 black swan like we did in March 2020. Unless that's the case. Of course, anything's possible in this matrix. I'm just not betting too much on that. Of course, always keep dry powder on the sidelines in case something does happen like that and you could actually respond to that market. That's all that really matters. EMAs are starting to splay out, looking very bullish, all sloping to the upside. 80 on the RSI is a little bit overheated. We got to 88 in the RSI back just a couple days ago. So a short-term correction or just staying sideways would be ideal. Reset the RSI a little bit. We got our pullback targets. As for upside, some of you might want to know that now. As for upside, we have to consider 618, 39K, and that could be happening before the end of this year. If you look right around December 13th, right around the start of Saturnalia into the 17th, 18th, the outside of this trend line would still be hitting us at 39,000. Remember, this was our yearly trend line that we flipped as a resistance so far. We don't need a break above that just yet. It doesn't matter. As long as we're holding trend, that's what matters most, especially horizontal trend. If we break below 25K, that would be very weird. That'd be very problematic. So that would be your alarm. 25K or lower on weekly closes is an alarm. But for now, things are looking fine. Let's go over to ETH. Got above 1800, but still high, lower, low, lower, low, lower, low. It's bull flagging, but that doesn't look amazing. We want a break above this 0.5 fib to start getting happy. In the meantime, any pullback on Bitcoin could cause a pullback to 1540 on ETH very quickly. As high as it goes up is as high as it could go down, because right now is the Bitcoin show. All this dominance that Bitcoin has. I'm not sure if I talked about this in the last red pill, but we effectively got to the 54% dominance that I've been calling for. And we're still following this long-term trend line that has been in place since the end of last year. And I have my upper target to consider at the 1618 at 56%. That could all be happening before the end of this year, especially into Q1. So ETH, it's still kind of looking downtrend-ish since the start of our solar cycle. That's not weird. It's 200 days of this micro downtrend. We flipped these two rejections right there. That's looking nice, but it would have to be getting above this structural level. I would just call it above the pre-solar cycle highs. So those mid-April highs at 2,150. That would just feel like full-blown trend reversal and when to anticipate an SOS, a sign of strength. But for now, flagging out 382 is important level. I believe my last buys on ETH were pushing into the low 1500s, so I'm glad I got those in, because generally that's been our support and resistance trading range for 500 days. So if we do magically go lower, it's a buying opportunity for me, of course, but I wanted to get those buys in regardless. XRP, still the same story. Let me show you rejections on the outside of this trend line. I had an awesome XRP update that I released this week. Go check that out if you haven't. We were holding this as a support before this launch, and then we came right back down to it. And then when we broke below it, we've gotten a rejection, and then multiple rejections. This is effectively flipped as a resistance. So we're holding a horizontal trend line support though, which is even more important because this horizontal trend line goes from September 2022. It's been over 400 days. And now we're looking healthy above it. If we could break above both, beautiful. If we could get above 62 cents, that would be gnarly. So in the meantime, anything around this level right now for me is a buying opportunity. I would love a lower opportunity for XRP, but we're just cutting it too close to the end of this case and all the shenanigans going on with that. So I'd rather position myself. And a reminder, when you're talking about a $10 to potentially $20 XRP, there is really nothing to worry about between 55 cents, 50 cents, 40 cents. It doesn't matter. It's all pretty damn similar. We're talking about a huge ROI potential. So don't rip your hair out over this. Most people do split hairs over this, the specifics. Dollar cost averaging was here to cure that. Okay. If you buy with 10 small investments over a 3 or 4 year time period, you're not worried about the lowest price because you're building position and getting involved and taking action whenever those opportunities come up. So that's the whole point of dollar cost averaging over a long time horizon and having generally a long investment time horizon. So, yep, I can't really say too much about this at the moment because we have to get back above this 61 into 62 cent level. In the meantime, we have a couple of trend lines that we're battling with. This is the key prior resistance. It'd be great for it to effectively flip as a new support. I do think that we have some more time to go though, because it's the Bitcoin show right now. Until we get through the next Bitcoin halving, there's still tons of opportunity for these altcoins, which is positive because I myself am a big XRP holder. I love to have more opportunity with XRP accumulation. I'm sure you guys do too. Okay. Quick update on Hex because of the warning that I shared over on x.com. This was the last update that I shared. I was talking about this cycle back here where it got a rejection right into this same time frame we're in today, right at October 30th into November 1st. It had this Christmas tree type pattern. You can see the way we shot up at the same time frame this year in 2023, 3 years later, looks identical, and we got rejected at the same exact level. So I wouldn't be playing around with this. We could actually see it dump right back down like it did in this iteration over here. So I'm not going to go too deep into this, but I just wanted to let you know, if you're into these types of updates, go ahead and follow over at Waters Above, spelled WATERSABVE. I'm going to quickly get into this chart with everyone, zoom in, and I want to show you. We have a horizontal level right here at 0068 coming in right there. If we break below that, there's thin air going all the way down into these lower levels. What we had happen in the last iteration was a complete break, but what we could have in this time is a very weird inverse head and shoulders. So I'm going to show you, if we looked at a weekly and I turned this all off, you could have your left shoulder, head, right shoulder if we were to hold that 0068 to 007 level. But if we consider what happened last time over here, I wouldn't be banking on that to happen. But there is a potential bullish pattern that we always need to consider. We're not bears here. We're technical analysts. And this is the time frame I'm talking about. Now, what happened was we immediately had about a 50% correction, which would be bringing us somewhere into 006. Then we had a little bull trap around the following new moon, which would be the 13th of November. So let me show you if I could find like a drawing tool, what that would look like. So it'd be like this, come down, and then lower high, and then back down to this area. That would be like what happened back in 2020. Same thing. Oh, and by the way, I have people that are like, well, in 2020, that was the time frame of the big payday or whatever. Not okay. None of that shit matters. Like, you need to see through this. There's a cyclicality that's moving this. And what I proved without a shadow of doubt is this big correction right here was into a lunar eclipse. Literally. Just like we're having a lunar eclipse today. Like, there's a bigger thing moving this market. I want people to see that. Now, what we're talking about lately, what they're telling us, is that all of this bullish energy has come in because of the clarity of Brad Garlinghouse and Chris Larson on Team Ripple and the update on the SEC case and how they're dismissed from that case. Well, why does that make sense that Richard Hart and his project would be able to go up 300% in just a couple weeks, but the team itself directly associated with the current case can't even go up that much? Why didn't we see this happen with Ripple? It's not like Richard Hart got dismissed from the Hex case. You see? So the speculation that this bullishness came because of that, it's the same nonsense that people are going to peg at any time. They're just following news. They're following what they think. But there's an esoteric code running this market. And the way that this moved this time around is identical to the way that it did back then at the same exact time. So I want that to be known. Now, there's very good news on this, though, is after this mini bull trap, so coming back down, potentially coming into the 008 level again, plus a bigger rejection. Well, during that rejection, that was the lowest that it went. And it was into the November full moon. So you want to look at the lunar cycles. The November full moon in 2020 was the best last chance to buy cheap, really discounted Hex before it went on a 15,000% gain. I'm not shitting on this project. It had an amazing bull run back then. So consider that. Oh, and by the way, just transparency, I don't own any Hex. So I'm doing this purely to be an educator, to be helpful, to be transparent, and out of appreciation for the support that I get from the Hex community. Note, there was a double bottom and W pattern that happened back in this iteration over here, and it looked like a W. I just want to point that this was a very clean W because we had this micro double bottom, which led to a back test over here, and then it just rallied on for like 300 days. So this is what we could be moving into, and a very clean W gives us a double bottom pattern opportunity, which lasts about 21 days. So if you go 9 days to the left from the full moon and 9 days to the right, it gave you your opportunity to get in. That's really nice. So I just want to let you know that around the next full moon could be pretty solid chance for people who've been waiting on the sidelines and who didn't want to FOMO into this pump, because this brought a lot of FOMO in. All right. And that's not healthy when you're buying just because everyone else is. You wanted to buy when it was boring and in a downtrend. Okay. We're going to take a quick look at Hex on the Pulse chain. So P Hex. We only have about 6 months of chart history here, but I believe we have some key support and resistance levels already going on. We have this touch here, double touch before this launch. That would be your your support, excuse me. Then you have your 3 rejections up here confirming this descending trend line, this resistance line. A rejection here. It looks very automatic rally-like. So you have your buying climax, selling climax, automatic rally. What we need to consider is if we were to push into the time frame of the upcoming full moon, late November, that'd be putting you around 008. And that's right on this horizontal level and on this blue line, which would be your key support. The problem here is that if we broke below this level, then we have to deal with the 0068, and then that only has thin air below. So at best, maybe a double bottom. If that was to break, and it would look like that, getting you a kickback back into the general pattern. Let me make that a little thicker. So you see, we go into a double bottom. There's your 1 bottom, there's your 2, and then kickback, which pushes you back into the pattern, back into this general pattern. That's scenario 1. That's something you could consider. Or it just stays super bullish and we hold the pattern. And then we have a breakout about 75% through the apex. And I believe we should be breaking out in bullish for this project around Saturnalia. So that would be late December. Keep that in mind. And the breakout would look very much like this. So you'd have touch, break, back test, and then you're off. And that would be your key level right there to break. And this could turn into a huge W if that was the case. We'll get there when that time comes. Now, what could be very not the most favorable is if this becomes a spring. And then that's your scenario that you want to think of with Wyckoff method. So you have your buying climax, selling climax, automatic rally, spring. And this would be your test zone. It would give you more opportunity to get lower, but that's where it gets really skeptical because you don't know if this is your bottom because you only had 2 trading days there. That could effectively push you into price discovery to the downside. And we don't know how that's going to go. It still has this ongoing case that's fresh. You know, these cases take years regarding this SEC nonsense. And I don't support the SEC at all. Fuck the SEC. I'm just letting you know that it is a part of the reality of HEX and the HEX community that they have to deal with now, as all the people who were XRP investors have had to deal with it and are still dealing with it. Remember, that case started in 2020. That's a long time ago. It's 2023 moving into 2024 now. So yeah, it's just getting going. Now, there's a couple things to mention that would be very bullish, one of which would be this zone of white that we have here between 009 and 008, something like this. That'd be very nice. Can't bank on that though. We have to see what happens also with EHEX and just the general markets. So I'm going to leave it at that. I gave you guys plenty to chew on in this update. We're going to be moving on to Chainlink now, a coin that I actually do invest in, that I do plan to build a bigger position in moving forward. Chainlink been very bullish off of this solar eclipse, similar to what we've had with Bitcoin. It's broken out of this horizontal structure that's been going on for 535 days. There's a little bit of code that I want to share with you. I'm definitely considering this as an important project for 2024 with the hexagon symbolism in Chainlink. If you look at their logo, you could see what I mean right over here. We know that this is a Saturn coin. It's called Link. Like chains are made of links chained to the blockchain. It's very Saturnian. It's an oracle. Let me just show you that code. Oracle gives you 21, like Saturn gives you 21. 2 ones, 21. 2 ones becomes 11, like Link gives you 11. This is the number I associate with Janus being the 11th month in the true system. 2 faces, 2 towers, 2 pillars. That 11. Janus gives you 11 by the code. What we think of with this 11 also has to be turned into this number 31, and that's just because of mathematics, because 31 is the 11th prime number. Like hexagon, the symbol is 31. That's your 11th prime. It's the same story for hex we were just talking about a moment ago. So we have chain, link, and the ticker link. We have this 37. We talked about that earlier in today's decode. That's 37777 is your jackpot. That adds up to 21. Right back to Saturn. Let's get into the link TA though, because I shared some quick thoughts on this. I really like this yellow trend line that's been effectively backtested lately. So we had the current all-time high bull trap, followed by the last touch before a deeper correction. Then we've interacted with this trend line rejection here, followed by the lowest we went in the cycle, and then coming back up to then back test the outside of it. Once we broke above all of these highs, which is what, 500 plus days of horizontal trading, that effectively means that we are now in a recovery mode for Link. It's back to bull. But we never really back tested this 950 area, so we have to see. There could always be a chance that we come back down like this. I just want you to keep that in mind. And if there is any trading around 950 or below $10 into this 236 at 850, that would be incredible. Remember, the cycle has some time to develop. Let's look back here. We had this whole trading range. This was your C19, or no, sorry. Wow. Yeah, it moved up into here. That was your C19. Okay. So we see this horizontal trading range, a couple rejections at this key level. We've since back tested it many, many years later. That was a very bullish opportunity there. This was your C19 crash. You see how quickly it fell, but then recovered? That's how fast this could all go down. So I'm not saying that we're going to have this in Link. I'm just saying that we want to keep mind of these trend lines. But The one thing that I'm seeing here too is once we broke out above this 1 year resistance, we didn't really backtest it. We just moved up. That could be the case now. So it's kind of around that time to consider, building these positions and these category winners. Again, that's not financial advice. I'm not telling you what to do. I'm personally going to wait. I don't need to get in right now. My thesis is to go in when I'm ready, when I feel comfortable, not when things are pumping. That's not my mode. Plus, we have a full year pretty much till I feel the bull run will be really showing itself across the board. And another thing about Chainlink is it's still down 80% from its current all-time high. So plenty of opportunities still. Let's move on to Cardano. But general layer to consider 850, around 950, anything below 10, it's a pretty nice opportunity. Cardano, same colors, and as well their logo forms the hexagon. So we can see really laggy behavior in ADA. We have a correction of about 92%. That should be your full correction. We have a big kind of double bottom essence. We're looking back at the last cycle over here. And we rose up only slightly below the 382 in regards to our automatic rally, followed by holding structure, lower high C19 crash, and then we had our SOS and backup phase. This was beautiful because there's your AR, there's your SOS, which is a higher high versus your AR, but we back tested the top of the automatic rally perfectly. So what that tells me is if we were to have a push up like this and go like that to back test these highs, that'd be very bullish, last opportunity. But why wait that long when you're all the way down here? So again, kind of any opportunity when you're at the sub 236 levels is accumulation. And then you look at just getting back into the golden pocket would be a 400 to 500% gain. Just getting back to prior all-time highs would be almost a 10x on ADA. And ADA slayed it the last cycle from September to September. From Rosh Hashanah to Rosh Hashanah, it went up 4,000% in a year. So I wouldn't really be banking on too many upside fib levels on this, but there is potential that if we were to hold and look at this 1618 of the last cycle, let me show you. I'm just going to point out an idea. This is your full fib pull. 15 to 18 is possible. 15 to 18 on ADA is possible. Yeah, that'd be about 4,000%. 4,000 to 6,000%. So that's not even crazy. We've seen altcoins go up 60,000%. So that could be some good upside targets to get on ADA. It's very conservative based on the prior all-time high. It would just be a move of 400% more. Look at this past all-time high in 2018 to the new all-time high. It was only 150% higher. So if we went only 100% higher from the current all-time high, that'd be $6.30. And from where we're at now, up to $6.30 would be a 2,000% gain. Massive, so just keep this stuff in mind. I do believe I'll be building a venture capital position in ADA as well, and I'll give you guys updates when that time comes. Okay, we have ICP, the Insane Clown Posse token. Oh yeah, this is not good. Okay, so we'll be quick on this. You have price discovery to the downside, 99.4% down. So it's kind of like Hex. Hex has lost about 99.5% of its value. Even breaking below this 236, you're technically making lower lows and lower highs. That's not good. High, lower high, lower high, lower high, still lower highs, low, lower low, lower low, still fresh lower lows. This is September. Bitcoin would be like up here. So this is not looking pretty at all. This is very sketchy. I would not be confident investing in this at all. Let me make sure this is on log. Yeah. This is so much between where we're at now and the 236. $4 versus $10. You need to effectively get over almost 200% to even get back to this 236, and that doesn't look bullish. I don't like this at all. Let me pull a fib from this level right here and reverse and see where this takes us, because that could be something to consider. Yeah, $1.44. If this wanted to head one leg lower, that is possible. And what's keeping this thing up anyways? Hope? Yeah. No, I don't have too much to say about this. This is not a good looking chart. Perpetually trading to the downside. Getting rejected over and over again every time it gets some slight bullish energy. Maybe if it could break out of this descending triangle vibe, there could be something nice to come. But in the meantime, yeah. No. These types of wedges and all of this is going to seem experimental when you're looking at a chart that looks like this type of chart. So yeah, I mean, it's too venture capital. It's too risky. Not really anything bullish that has shown inside of this local chart, even with Bitcoin doing pretty well right now. This thing's doing the opposite. So yeah, not good. Let's look at Filecoin. Oof. Yeah. Okay. Pretty much trading at lows, similar to the Cardano chart, actually. This chart goes all the way back to 2018. Holy shit, it's trading as low as it was in 2019, 2018 and 2019. That'd be like if Bitcoin was trading at $2,000. Bitcoin's currently trading at 34,000, and this thing is trading at those same levels as if Bitcoin was at 2,000. So that's why you don't want to touch this stuff. This is super fucking sketchy, and you need to make sure you're in the right place at the right time and that you de-risk accordingly. It's not long-term hold. This is 98.4% down. It's as low as it was pretty much during the C19 timeframe. Not good. Bitcoin was at 3,000 to 4,000 during C19, during that crash. It's almost 10x from there currently. So it's not good. Yeah, I have to finish up today's episode because it was a really long podcast. With stuff like this, guys, you want to be super cautious when you look back at how this past price action is being retested. It has not gained much value in a majority of its time. So this is retail playing around with stuff. This is not big money, and you need to push your mind over to where the money is flowing, because we're moving into a new type of vibe with cryptocurrency. Home offices are getting into it. We have the ETF coming soon. That means big money is moving into Bitcoin, and it's going to leave this sort of speculative nonsense. You're going to want to focus more on the ISOs, focus more on finding charts that have structure and have been moving up and progressing over time. This is no progress. So be careful with this kind of stuff. That's not me saying don't get involved. That's me saying be careful with how you get involved and how much you involve yourself in it. Some words of wisdom. So I'm going to leave it at that. I appreciate you guys, and I hope you have a beautiful rest of your weekend. We'll see how this World Series goes with Arizona Diamondbacks and all of that stuff. So love you guys. Appreciate you. Much love.